All right, guys. So here we are in the terminal. We're going to do almost everything from this. But just a little background. This scenario was a scenario I was in where I had multiple Lambda functions that I wanted to make changes to, but I wanted to gradually shift the traffic to those updated functions with as little downtime as possible and being able to verify that it was working properly. So this is just a very simple example of setting up code deploy through a template. And we're going to do linear with this one instead of all at once or even canary. We're going to do a linear. We're going to do a 10% every 1 minute so that we can make this, pretty quick. But I just want to give you a quick rundown of how to do this through SAM and through code deploy with Lambda functions. So my little sample template is hosted on my GitHub repository. So I'm going to go ahead and clone that and get access to that real quick first. So we're going to do git clone. All right, and then we're going to get in the correct directory here. Okay. And to ensure that, we'll just do an ls to list where we're at here. And that's perfect. That's exactly what I wanted. So we're going to do vim template.yaml to access the template file. So it's just a basic description. So we're testing and shifting traffic here. Our resources are going to be HTTP API for API function. Down here, we see deployment preferences. We can do, there's several more options as well, but those are just the first ones that I wanted to add in there. And for type, this is where we actually have to declare what type of deployment we actually want to do. So we're going to hit I for insert. We're going to delete that and then actually put in, as I said previously, we're going to do linear 10% every 1 minute. That way we get it done pretty quick here. So we're doing a get method, HTTP API, and then we specified our handler and runtime down here. And for our outputs, the most important thing we'll be looking for is our API invoke URL, which will be given to us after deployment. So that's really all I had to do with this simple template file. So we're going to go ahead and hit escape and then :WQ. So that'll exit out of that. So now at this point, we're going to just do a validation of our SAM. So SAM validate. Okay, so it is a valid SAM template. Now we're going to do a guided deployment. So we're going to do SAM deploy -G. Now we'll have to answer a few basic questions here. For stack name, we're just going to give it stack newness. AWS region, we are going to use US East 1. So we'll hit enter for that. And we are just going to confirm these changes. And we are going to save this to a SAM config file. So hit yes again. And now we will be initiating our deployment. It looks for the resources, declared that it's found the resources. And now we're doing our initiation. So before we actually deploy, it's going to tell us everything here that we're adding, which is quite a few things. A few different IAM roles, Lambda alias, we're doing some code deployment group, and then our Lambda version, Lambda function. So we're going to go ahead and deploy this so we can get our outputs and then check and ensure everything's working properly. And at this point, this should look very similar to what we're all used to seeing in the AWS console when doing a CloudFormation change set. It will tell us, create in progress, create complete. And it will also tell us if anything fails creation. So hopefully we won't run into that issue, and that everything will finish up here, and we'll get our outputs. Okay, there we go. So we got our outputs here. We're going to make note of this. Most important thing is, again, our invoke URL. We're going to go to a text editor and just paste this. And I'm actually going to go ahead and fire up this API invoke URL. Over here in Google. We see our initial response that we're getting back from our Lambda function is we will start with this original response. This is just an example so that we can actually see what we're getting versus when we do our traffic shift, we'll change it to something different so we can see how frequently the response we're getting is to the new function. So we're going to go back into terminal. And now we're actually going to, let's do ls again, make sure we're still good, and we are. So now we're going to vim src/index.py. All right, so this is what we're going to change right here. We're going to change the body in the return response that we get so that we can verify that our shift or traffic shift is actually happening, is actually working properly. So we'll just do something silly here. All right. I'm going to hit escape again, :WQ to save and exit. It's as simple as that. We just made changes, very, very simple changes, but we made changes to our Python coding. And now if we do another deployment, we'll be able to see the traffic shift be initiated and see the changes take place. So we're just going to go ahead and do a SAM deploy this time. All right, so these are the changes that are going to be made. So it's going to delete the previous function version. It's going to update it with our new function version. And it's going to update our Lambda alias and Lambda function for the change that we just made. So if we hit yes to this, we'll go ahead and get the deployment started. And I'm actually going to go over to code deploy console so we can actually see this take place. At this point, it should be creating our new deployment. We should have one that's in progress. We do. Stack newness, that's the name that we gave it. So we're going to go into this deployment and we're going to see that we've already had a shift of 10% happen. And then over the next 10 minutes or so, gradually we'll have 10% each minute go entirely to the new function. So just a quick way of testing it is to go back to our invoke URL. And if we hit refresh, we should, majority of the time, be getting our original response. But eventually, at some point, we should get our new funny response. All right, there we go. Finally, we got one. So, and as the traffic shifts more and more, we'll get more and more of the updated response. This is just showing you that the gradual traffic shift and how it impacts your updated environment. So I'm actually going to pause the video here and We'll come back when the code deploy is 100% finished. All right, so we're at 80% now. I'll be back in probably about 8 minutes. All right, guys. So there we have it. You see now we are at 100% of the traffic has been shifted. Everything succeeded. And now if we go over to our invoke URL again, we can hit refresh and we'll see that we get nothing but the new updated response and not the original response. So that tells us that